Welcome to the Exhaust Notes podcast.
Bienvenue. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Exhaust Notes podcast. It's your favorite Formula One favorite podcast about Formula One. As always, I've got my illustrious co-host, Nicholas J. Engvall, and Todd, Yuki is my hero, Yates. Gentlemen, how are we today? We've got 2 races in our belt.
Good.
Not all at once, please.
Yeah.
Now, listeners, let's give you a peek behind the curtain. We came up with a bit that you guys will soon get to know what we actually come up with in the 5 minutes before our pre-show meeting, where we're like, we should probably talk about something. So before we do that, I kind of was the brainchild, or rather, this is one of my brainchildren. And if my co-hosts are nothing else, they're good sports, because your boy sometimes goes off the reservation. And yeah, I don't know what to do with my hands either, Nicholas. And somebody asked me once, is like, so when you say go off the reservation, does that have a special meaning because you're Indian? And I was like, you're absolutely right, it does. Because I'm from the New Delhi tribe, listener. See, this is where we get to the point in the podcast where Nick is ready because I've made him giggle through these dad hackneyed jokes that I do. And I think Todd's ready because they actually make him angrier, which for our podcast, an angry Todd is a great Todd. So before we get into the bit, Nick, how are you doing?
Oh, good, man. 2 races in. I'm excited for this year. I'm super excited for this year.
Angry Todd? Oh, sorry. Keep going, Nick.
I was just going to say, full disclosure, you know, I'm getting ahead of ourselves here, but like Lewis winning the sprint on Saturday, I literally saw the results and I told Cam, I'm like, are we really going to get to live through Lewis winning his 8th title in the same year that we get to see Kendrick at the Super Bowl? Like, what more can a guy ask for? Like life is good.
I think much like Kendrick at the Super Bowl, it will be outweighed by more shenanigans. Maybe, hopefully, papaya-colored shenanigans.
Isn't that place with all the goofy shit on the wall?
I'm going to pistol whip the next.
Well, guys, we've had enough of the foreplay. Let's just get to it. So our bit for this evening is something that we've called commit, pit, or quit. And so now, because we've had the aforementioned 2 races, we've noticed a couple of narrative threads that we want to discuss on the podcast, but we're unsure on how we want to classify them. So, because one of us has a rhyming dictionary and a love of all things Theodore Gissel or Dr. Seuss, I figured if we like a story, we like the narrative, we commit to the bit or the commit. If we think, hey, let's get a little bit more sample size in terms of the data, or let's just recalibrate because we want to see more, we're going to take it to the pits, much like our favorite drivers do in the middle of a race. And then if we just think the narrative flat out sucks, we're going to quit on it because, listen, if there's one thing Mamas Engvall and Yates have raised, it's not quitters. And if they really want to quit on something, it's podcast-worthy news, so that's how we're going to approach it. Simple premise, guys, or what else do we want to add before we get started?
I think that's a good start. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right, lights out.
On everything. I'm kidding.
He's
okay,
angry.
this is the portion of the podcast where we'll do my OnlyFans read, but you'll have to wait on that. Anyway, so because I came up with it, I'm going to be lazy and defer to one of you guys because also both of your favorite teams, rather, look like they are the leading contenders of this very early season. Team Papaya, 2 for 2 in terms of the races. Are we committing to their championship aspirations on both the driver front and the constructors front? I'll pass it to you, Angry Todd Yates. What do you think?
Thank you for picking me first, because this one, much like in everything else in my life, I'm going to sit on the fence. I think we need to see more. I'm going to say we pit on that because obviously they have the best car right now, but we've got the whole the flexi-wing dilemma still up in the air. I guess after the first race, we had the FIA come in even harder and say that they're going to be cracking down potentially sooner than I think it was. They were talking about race 9, I think it was, in the beginning, or like preseason. They were talking about having the flexi-wing changes outlawed or enforced, I should say. But it sounds like they might be doing it even sooner than that, where they're going to – is it Suzuka? Or is that the next race?
That's the next race.
Suzuka's next.
Japan's next,
okay.
Yeah.
It might be either race 3 or race 5 then that they're gonna scoot up that timeline where they're reducing the amount of flex that the front wings are allowed to have. It seems like pretty much most of the field is taking advantage of that flexi-wing stuff right now, and there's.
So can you break it down for like the people that don't know the details of that flexi-wing?
Sure. They all the furniture, for lack of a better term, that sticks out all over an F1 car, they have static load tests where they put a certain amount of weight or pressure on a bit of carbon fiber that's sticking out from the edges of these cars. The front wing, for instance, has a static load that they press down on these wings, and they're allowed to bend so much. Because if the carbon fiber was perfectly stiff, it would snap under load. Like when they're going 200 miles an hour, it would just crack off, basically.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to have a little flex to make sure that the things just don't fall apart at speed. But they have, I think right now, they have a certain percentage or threshold that it's allowed to flex, and they're going to be tightening that up. And that was one of the big talking points in the offseason, that they were going to crack down on that. This kind of came on because of the McLaren's work last year about having like a flexi front wing, and that, without getting too much into the nerd weeds here, when you allow the front wing to flex, it will basically, they lose downforce in a straight line when they're going like flat out at maximum speed. So it makes them faster in a straight line. And then once they start to slow down for the corner, those things release tension and cause more downforce to be able to make the corner, have better grip in the corners. So they're going to be tightening up the threshold of which they allow those things to flex. And I think it was race 9 initially, at least that's what they said in the preseason, where they're going to outlaw or tighten up the regulations on the flexing. And it sounds like after what they saw in the first race of the season last week, that they're going to potentially move that timeline up. That being said, why I would say pit on McLaren is because they by far and away have the best car right now, and that could come to bite them because they were kind of one of the pioneers of this new loophole that we love when teams find.
Creative engineering, if you will.
Yes.
So if race 9 would put it 6, 7, 8, that's either Monaco or Spain. Round 9's Spain.
I think it was Spain that they were talking about having that.
Interesting. So like if it's really, really pushed forward, we could see it by like Saudi Arabia or Miami round 5 or 6.
I want to say it was either race 3 or race 5, but next race in Suzuka, I had heard, I think initially it was Suzuka, but that seems a little fast. So yeah, it could be race 5.
I'm kind of with you. Like this is definitely in the pits. I think it's interesting. I was kind of reading into this to understand it a little bit more, like last week before this weekend's race. And I like being into cars, like I've laid carbon fiber. I've made things out of carbon fiber, not to any skill level that I'd be proud of, but I've at least attempted it. And, I like used to do like car stereo systems. So I did a lot of fiberglass work way back in the day. But what I didn't realize about Formula One cars and just in like super high end race cars in general is the amount of flex that they can control just based on the direction of the weave and the direction of the, like it's not like one giant wing, put it in a vacuum mold and you've got a big wing, right? It's all these bits and pieces that come together. So like certain parts of the wing are maybe molded, front to back with the weave or the strength of the carbon fiber going front to back. Certain parts of the wing might be diagonal. Certain parts might be, left to right. And that, like the idea of that, I never really thought of, but like, it's really interesting to think about how much they can control and how in the weeds they can get with these types of rules. And might be getting a little ahead of ourselves, but like the rules in Formula One are just insane, right? Like Lewis was disqualified for 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, whatever it was.
I think it was a half a millimeter.
Or half. Yeah, exactly.
It was like 0.4 millimeters.
It's insane. Like what the regulations, I get why, right? Because, like we've talked about it for years on this podcast. The goal for teams is to bend the rules as much as they possibly can, figuratively and literally. So, but yeah, I was really surprised to see that. I mean, look, if everybody can do it, I don't see what the problem is. But also, like, if you really want to be sticklers about it and you feel like McLaren's getting away with it because they're better at it than everybody, then you want to reel them in. I kind of understand that too, but
so it's a pit for you.
Yeah.
I think go ahead, Todd.
No, I was just going to say one more thing. The other reason that I was like, it's kind of a pits for me is because the thing that I'm scared about is Oscar and Lando are both performing at a really high level right now, and there's a very good chance that they could start to like take points off of each other. It's all great when they're getting 1-2s, but if they're battling for a second or third and actually fighting and not going to fight at the front for the win, they could start to take points off each other, and they seem to be the highest performing pair of drivers with the best car right now. So that could actually come back to bite them, because we have, even in Ferrari, say, let's say they had the pace right in the sprint this weekend. They could have been, fighting for a second or third there. And those points are going to start to matter.
The points are going to matter. But I guess the thing I was most impressed by with this particular race coming out of China was, this is the first time I felt that McLaren was comfortable letting Oscar have the win, so to speak. I think every other race we've seen McLaren have, there's been this but in terms of letting Oscar succeed to the level, if not past Lando's level. And I also thought it was kind of telling that I believe it was one of the post-race conferences where somebody was asking Lando his thoughts, and Lando kind of gave this bemused smirk, is the best way I would describe it, of, I could have caught him. And that's where I'm wondering now, is this sort of I wouldn't even call it a hangover, but are we starting to see Lando Norris break bad? Because my whole theory, and maybe we'll save this for the aforementioned hot takes with cool dudes, is, are we getting a baby Verstappen? Because I don't know. I still think Piastri has something to say. I don't think he often gets his chance, but early returns are good. So I think if I had to go with one of the three options, I commit to McLaren, because my thought was, at best, they'll win the constructors again, but I don't know if they're going to have the drivers, because I thought this would be Oscar's breakout year, so to speak. But as of right now, it seems very even-steven right down the middle.
So I think that McLaren is going to run away with the constructors unless something really drastic happens. I don't see anybody. Their car is so good, and both the drivers have, like we talked about it at the end of last year, right? Like the confidence that they have. Like even Lando, in one of the interviews I saw over the last week or two, he said, I know I can win now. Like I trust that the car is good, but I trust myself to be able to win now. And, like watching those last laps of the Shanghai race, I think he absolutely could have caught Oscar. I mean, he also had no brakes or whatever, so like he wouldn't have done it safely. But like with like 6 or 7 laps to go, he was pushing it, and he was within like 2 seconds, 2.2 seconds, which, was like a 3 or 4 second jump, in like just a short number of laps, which is pretty impressive. But also, I think like the thing about Lando and Oscar that's really interesting is like Lando like has more of a chip on his shoulder. I don't know if that's because he's constantly been racing with Max and been on the losing end of that friendship, battle. But Oscar still feels like, like he'll be there. He'll probably win, let's say he's going to win 5 or 6 races this season, which is incredible. But I feel like Lando's going to be in the like 8 to 10 range, if that makes sense.
No, wow. It makes sense, and I don't even know if that. I'd say that's a cool take, Nick. So shame on you for not getting the. No, it's going to be interesting to me because if you're saying Oscar wins 5 and Lando, let's say he wins a conservative 8, that's 13 races out of the possible 24. On paper, that seems like a dominant run, but then at the same time, I don't know, maybe I've been spoiled by the Verstappen-led dominance of the last couple of years. That doesn't feel enough to me, but maybe I'm giving too much credit to the team. What were you saying, Todd?
No, I was just surprised by Nick's proclamation of Lando winning like 9. I think this is like, and not because I don't think he could do it, and I do feel like he has a little bit of a, like you said, a chip on his shoulder, or a little bit more swagger this season. He feels like he's like prepared more mentally or whatever. He even had a good start today, right? Starting second, you're like, oh, Lando's probably going to drop back a couple places and then have to fight back through. But no, like he was on it today. So I just think that like this season's so close. They said I saw some stat over the weekend that I want to say it was like 2014 or 2012, something like that. The spread between P1 through P12 or something like that was 2.5 seconds in 2012 or 2014. And for this race, P1 through P12, it was 0.8 of a second. Wow. So it was like really, really close. Yeah. So I think it's, and we all know, like in Formula One, like everything has to go right. Besides having the best driver or the best car, like things have to go right also. So like just the fact that it's so close and there's so much unpredictability that I could see like 9 just seems like a lot for this season. The way it feels like it's shaping up. I mean, I hope that it's true what you just said.
Yeah.
But
I do think that. I mean, that's wishful thinking on my end, right? Like, obviously, like it's going to be competitive, but seeing Liam Lawson, which probably one of our next topics, but seeing Liam Lawson struggle, seeing, you know, the cash wrap cars do well, and seeing Kimi Antonelli do incredibly well, I think that all of the competition behind the front 2 or 3 cars is going to ultimately hold back the rest of the field. And if it's anything like the first couple of races, like it's going to hurt Max more than it's going to hurt like Lando and Oscar, because he doesn't have that counterpart. You know, like I'm sure you guys saw the clip of what's his name asking Christian Horner about, you know, Liam Lawson's performance, and you know, basically just straight up saying like, is this good enough? Is this what you wanted this isn't good enough to replace Checo. Like, what's going on here? And it's like,
they're just looking at the data, Nick. Nothing to see here.
It's like, it's only 2 races in, but I think like, you know, the next, you know, question is like Liam Lawson. I don't know if he's going to be around much longer, to be honest. Like, Red Bull's not patient. Normally, I would say a driver needs probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 races to get in the groove and like understand the car and grow into it and feel out where they're comfortable in that car. But, you know, we've seen Red Bull throw so many drivers out with, you know, better resumes than Liam Lawson. So,
no, but I mean, I would say this. I think if we're using the commit, pit, or quit, I think it's saying something for Red Bull, who's always had the quickest trigger finger on the grid, to get rid of somebody after 2 races. That would set a new precedence.
That would be wild. Like, even like thinking back to like Kvyat or Albon, like when they were super underperforming in the second seat of Red Bull, they both got like half a season. Yeah. So for them to go like there to be all this chatter already after 2 races, and it sounds like, I mean, there's so much murmurs in the paddock about him getting flip flopped with Yuki for Japan. Yeah, which seems like an actually smart marketing move for Red Bull's perspective. But 2 races is crazy. Like, we were talking about kind of preseason, like if Duhan's gonna, or Duhan, whatever, is gonna
Guan Yu Zhou.
Yep,
I think that's how you pronounce it.
I've now. Yep. Yes. If he was going to last, the 5, he was supposedly going to get the first 5 races of the season, and then it was probably going to be what's his name, the Brazilian kid. I can't think of it right now.
Capitino. See, that's for you, Todd.
I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now.
Colapinto. Francis
Colapinto. Yeah. Colapinto. I can't believe that they're seriously considering this after 2 races. However, that being said, he's been so far off the pace in everything. Like, he started P20 today, and I think he basically hung around in like P17, P18, and he was having trouble passing.
Yeah,
the Haas, passing like a Sauber, like that's rough.
Yeah.
By the way, you say genius marketing plan. I just say that's Helmut Marko casual racism 101, because even he's not going to fumble the bag that badly, and that man has been known to fumble many a bag. But Nick, you being the other big Yuki Tsunoda fan in my life, are you happy the fact that he just gets this opportunity? It doesn't matter how he got it, because at this point, Red Bull truly seems to think that it only takes one driver to win a Constructors and a Drivers' Championship.
I don't even know, man. Like, this is like something I can't really answer without like my kind of internal stick it to the man dialogue, where I don't understand why people like awards shows. I don't understand why, if you're a musician, you want to win a Grammy. I don't understand why you want to win an Oscar. I don't understand why you even want to be in the Hall of Fame when it's sports writers that determine who's in the Hall of Fame for many leagues. Like, all of those things don't, like, I get that they have this prestige to them of sorts, but to me, that is not why you would do anything, is for that recognition. I'd rather have recognition from my peers, from the people that I care about, that I know care about me, that I know would challenge me. So I say all that to say, like, Yuki has looked amazing. Other than having the wing literally implode on him, in braking or whatever it was yesterday, or towards the end of the China race, but he just seems like in a much better place anyway. And I think rather than like move him to Red Bull, let him take the Racing Bulls team and lead it. Like, I know that's not like a logical thing, because Formula One calls that a sister team or a secondary team or whatever it is. But like, the reality is, we all know that it's Red Bull. We all know that, like, it's still getting Red Bull logos and like in front of people. It's not the Red Bull car that Max drives. But like, nobody's going out and buying Red Bull because Liam Lawson's running around the track in 20th. Like, it doesn't really matter unless you're at the front, right? And if Yuki gets into the Red Bull car, he's going to be subject to the same learning curve that Liam Lawson is dealing with right now. And he might get in there and just absolutely kill it, and that would be amazing. But like, I almost think like it just doesn't make any sense to even think about that kind of stuff, because if you just let him kind of grow the way he's been growing with the Visa Cash App, Racing Bulls, like the V Carb, that car, I mean, that team has leveled up. Like, they started this season way better than I think anybody expected from them, especially with all the other, buzzworthy people and changes that happen, like, kind of were like forgotten about in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I would say, as far as Lawson swapping with Yuki, I'm a commit on that for sure. I'm of the mind that Yuki was the deserving and has been the deserving option for that second seat at Red Bull. Even though I will say, I think, and Max even put it out there pretty plain as day, like he said, look at how well both of the drivers in the RB or cash wrap, whatever, are doing. And look at the gap between me and and Liam, who he was kind of like in a way defending Liam's performance, but also saying like he's not me, so like of course he's not going to be doing as good because this car sucks. But he's like, he's not as good as I am, so like of course he's not going to be doing as good. So it was a little cocky, but also he was saying like the car's just not as easy to drive, and look at what they're doing in the V carb. But I mean, at that point, like I still think Yuki should have been there from before the season, and I want him to get in there and prove the doubters wrong. So I'm gonna commit for sure on that.
Speaking of proving the doubters wrong, I mean, I think one thing we've all discussed the last couple of years is the fact that Red Bull has essentially engineered their car to be Max Verstappen's car, and then whoever can drive it, great. You can give us extra points for whatever we want to aspire to world domination for this year. Is it me, or does this feel that this year's car doesn't feel the same kind of dominant as we've expected other cars? And then I read somewhere, and I'm apologizing because I can't remember where the link is, but I remember somebody interviewing Christian Horner, and they were just asking him about his thoughts on the car. And he goes, for all this talk about how we've made this Max's car, there are still changes that we will refuse to put in that he wants us to, because we want to give that illusion that anybody can drive that second car. And I'm kind of wondering if this is the year we're going to see that come to fruition in a sense, because for him, he's looking downright pedestrian. And I'll use this to shoehorn my one Chiefs mention in this. It's like watching Patrick Mahomes play this year, where he's still the most dominant quarterback I've seen in modern times, not named Thomas Brady. But at the same time, he is not achieving the same level. And I can't tell if it's his own personal shortcomings or if it's the machinery around him.
Yeah, that's really hard to know. I would say like the defining feature of, like, let's say the first race, because it was a lot more of an equal playing field with the changing additions. Max was the defining feature of Red Bull's race for that. He got second, right, first week. Like,
yes,
yeah.
That would not have happened without Max. That car's not there. Yeah. But like this second race in China, again, the first stint was terrible, and he was kind of in no man's land and just like hanging on pace wise, or like, doing enough to stay where he was in fifth or sixth. But then once the car got lighter, burned off fuel, he actually started to get some serious pace at the end, and he overtook, what was it, Hamilton, I think?
Yeah.
For fifth before he got DQ'd. So he was finding some pace towards the end, and I think that's promising for them. But like, for me, Red Bull would be nowhere without Max's like ultra scary talent right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's where I guess like maybe if we're using the analogies, like I'm in the pit with this, because I just don't see I don't see like the value of putting Yuki in the second car. I feel like you're setting him up to fail, and
No, but Nick, my thought is this. I think they're going to give it to us right now because, and maybe this speaks lowly of the car that they have. They're like, you know what? Do you know that thing you've all wanted, which is Yuki in that second Red Bull seat? We'll give it to you, but be careful what you wish for, because this car is atrocious, and it is so Max heavy or Max centric that nobody can drive this car. And these are the 20 best drivers in the world.
Yeah.
It's very possible that it's setting up Yuki to fail, but like, on the other hand, if he is, instead of being in, P20, P18, he's like P10, P8, like that just proves Yuki's talent. Granted, like China, I think, is a very hard racetrack to judge things against, because you saw it kind of up and down the field. It was a complete race of tire management. Like, other than the V-carbs doing the two-stop, everybody else went one stop, and it was just everybody hanging on. Like, nobody was attacking. It was kind of a boring race, honestly, if we're going to.
This was very much a technician's race in terms of, for noobs like myself who want to see booms and crashes and fast cars and faster men, and I don't know where I'm going to go with this monologue.
Big booms.
Big booms. I give it a boom instead of a doom. And that's a triple bake Costco. I'm sorry. That's the sound of us officially selling out here on the Exhaust Notes podcast. it is one of those things where this is a thinking man's race. That's how I would market it. And to your point, the tire management caused some people to overachieve, and certain scientific measures cause other teams to fall off the face of the grid. So that's my segue into the 800-pound prancing horse of the room. Ferrari had the best of times. They had the worst of times this week, where Lewis Hamilton won his first race of the season, which was, albeit a sprint. But then because of what we will call technical specifications not being met or being overexceeded, both Lewis and Charles Leclerc were disqualified from the main race. So the fifth and sixth that they had essentially was wiped off the board. Gentlemen, I ask you, commit, pit, or quit. What is the real Ferrari team?
Oh, man. That's so hard. I guess gun to the head, I'm going to say, and I don't know if this makes sense for the analogy, but quit. I feel like there's so much turmoil at Ferrari. I don't know if you've noticed, but even Charles is being sassy on the radio now. Like, did you hear kind of like late stages of the race where his engineer was telling him where he's losing time? And he's like, oh, I know. You've told me like 10 or 15 times already. Yeah. Like, I feel like he's getting kind of fed up with the Ferrari Roger, we're checking thing. Like, and Hamilton is on the like opposite end of that, saying like, you guys aren't talking to me, fill me in, tell me what's going on. And I know they're still kind of figuring out how to work together, but I feel like we're looking at the same kind of Ferrari, not strategy blunders, for that's not the right way to say it, but like the just
hard to not call it strategy blunders when both the drivers get disqualified.
Well, okay, ineptitude, Ferrari ineptitude.
Yeah.
Right. We got the plank thing for Hamilton, and his plank wear was under or over by 0.4 millimeters, and then the Leclerc's car was 1 kilogram underweight.
Which, to be fair, if he would have just come in and put a new nose on the car, he would have been, he definitely lost more fuel or burned more fuel because of that wing being broken the entire race.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You don't think so?
No, I thought you were going to say like I thought the angle you were taking was that he was underweight because he had the broken end plate, but they're allowed to replace that before the race or before they get weighed after the race. They're allowed to replace parts like for like before they do the weighing after the race. So, but you think so you think he burned more fuel because he was he was overcompensating because of the wing damage.
100%. I mean, I think it's just like what we were talking about with McLaren, right? Like these guys are, outperforming everyone because they've engineered a little bit more flex or a little bit more, whatever, where that wing, that side piece of the wing that broke off 100% is causing more tire wear. Maybe not like in like the short term, but that happened on the third corner or something like that. Like,
so, yeah.
So like he went 56 laps or whatever, like putting more pressure on those tires, like definitely putting like having, worse aerodynamics, all that stuff. So it feels like it has to, because that was the part of the conversation for all the teams was like the fuel consumption, like trying to make it, it's always a talking point, right? But they want it to be super calculated to the exact, but there was even talks of like some of the teams felt like they were counting on a safety car. Without a safety car, you're not burning as much fuel, so, or vice versa, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
So, to me, like, logically, it seems like that had to have affected Charles's drive or the weight of Charles's car and like the, just the efficiency.
Just
of the
how
car.
he had to drive it, right? He had to drive it a different way. I think it could have been that plus a little bit of Ferrari ineptitude where they like underfueled him, hoping for a safety car or whatever. But yeah, to have both your cars DQ'd when you're fighting for like a, fourth and a fifth or a fifth and a sixth, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's just more of the Ferrari shenanigans, and we're going to see it, unfortunately. So that's, to me, it's a quit. I think the drivers are there, the car isn't, and we're going to have to, I
think it's just learning curves. I'm sticking with Ferrari a little bit more on this one. I think it's just a pit for a while, and they'll get it figured out.
I have a question for both of you. And Nick, you know this question because you and I were fortunate enough to chat during our dark ages. But Todd, do you think Ferrari's missing one Carlos J. Sainz?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, Hamilton's driving to a point where it's not damaging the team, right? They've been on par with each other so far. I think they're peaking for what the car can do right now.
Who's the number one driver for Ferrari, though? I'm always coming back to this question.
Oh, it's Lewis Hamilton. He didn't even say, yeah. Did you hear the swap over during the race?
Talk to me about it
today. They said we're going to swap the pace right now because to Charles' credit, he had better pace than Hamilton did with a broken front wing. And granted, Ferrari took too long to realize that and do the swap over. But when they told Lewis, we're going to swap the cars, he was like, okay, we'll tell him to catch up. They told him exactly what turn to let him buy it. And he said, okay, we'll tell him to catch up and then we'll do the swap. He was like, no, I run this team.
But to be fair, he was right in the timing because Charles had a little bit of a slip up there and was not even close. It doesn't make sense for a driver to slow down to let his teammate pass.
2.5 seconds. Yeah. It was 2.5 seconds back. I understand that. But his response was hilarious. He's like, okay, well, tell him to catch up and then I'll tell you when we're going to do the swap.
Catch up like mayonnaise. By the way, when you mentioned Charles Leclerc losing his first for his front wing, it had very much the same tone of Kurt Angle winning a gold with a broken freaking neck. So shout out to all my WWE fans. That's my one shoehorn reference to professional wrestling on a podcast that I do. Now, the reason why I asked, do we miss Carlos Sainz? And Nick, I'm sure I'll get your answer as I ask you the same question. But then I always maintain that Carlos Sainz's superpower is his ability to put his head down and drive and his ability to mesh well with regardless who his other teammate is. I think this, and I've said this on record many a time, so listener, this may be your first episode, this may be your 100th episode. They got rid of the wrong Ferrari driver. I think had they gotten rid of Leclerc and kept Sainz, I don't think it would have been as much of an issue. But because of the fact that Charles Leclerc has been anointed the golden boy Ferrari, he's the prodigal son, he is all these things that Ferrari, Netflix, your favorite Formula One governing body want us to think about him. He can't go this gently into the night, but as I maintain, and as Anita Driver wrote a book about him, he tends to have these no good, terrible days more often than not. So, Nick, I ask you, what do you make of the Ferrari hierarchy?
So it's impossible to say that unless Lewis Hamilton was driving for Red Bull with Max, I don't think that there's anybody on the grid that would be considered the number one driver on the team. If Lewis is on your team, he's the number one driver. That might be debatable if you're at Red Bull, but
McLaren.
Even at McLaren,
yeah,
I
really?
mean, we know Lewis at Red Bull is, I mean, Helmut Marko's too much of a racist for that to ever happen.
Allegedly.
But allegedly, yeah. But Max is on his way to being, the greatest driver ever, potentially, right? But Lewis still is the greatest driver ever right now. So even with age, it's not like Alonso, where Alonso's, a decade off of his nearest best performance. Lewis was competitive, 3 years ago, because the cars were competitive. The Mercedes was competitive the way the Red Bull is now. If Lewis hopped into a McLaren right now, I think he'd be at the front of the grid, just like Lando or Oscar. So for Ferrari, I think that, Leclerc is, I don't think Leclerc is necessarily exponentially a better driver than Sainz, but I think he's always kind of been. It's almost like Lando and Oscar. Lando's the guy for McLaren. Leclerc is the guy for Ferrari. Yeah, you have, Lewis Hamilton in that other car now, but it's just kind of they've been committed to him. I respect that teams do that kind of stuff. Because so many teams don't. So
it's peaks and valleys, right? We've always talked about when it was Leclerc and Sainz on Ferrari. Leclerc was probably on his best day, the ultimate pace for Ferrari that they could achieve. But Sainz was that steady pair of hands, and I feel like that's where they are still in Ferrari with Hamilton and Leclerc. Like, I think Leclerc is probably going to have the ultimate pace on Hamilton now, given his age and given Leclerc's time in the team already. But I think Hamilton's probably going to have, he's the steady pair of hands now with, really good upside on pace.
But it doesn't seem like it, but Leclerc has twice as many wins and like 35% more podiums than Sainz. So
absolutely,
the stats show that he's a better driver.
No, but he's also been in that Ferrari car a lot more. And I would say this, the best thing about Carlos Sainz is also the worst thing in terms of his winning prospects. He's a journeyman. I'm not pulling punches. Like, he's had stints at what feels like half the grid at this point.
Yeah. The one thing we didn't get to, though, like on the overarching theme on Ferrari row, was it a commit, pit, or quit for you on Ferrari?
I was going into this discussion a commit, but now after hearing you gentlemen pontificate about the things that you pontificated on, spoiler alert, I've got a hot take with these two cool dudes next week that's going to melt your faces. I right now am in the pits and I'm leaning more towards quit.
Wow.
Okay, that's two of us then.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning. I'm in the pits, but I'm way more leaning towards commit with Ferrari. Like I know it's just a sprint race, but Lewis's pace throughout the weekend is way better than I expected the second race of the season.
That's fair. That's definitely fair.
Like, I'm legitimately excited to see Lewis win his 8th title, and I think it will happen with Ferrari.
Will it happen this year, Nick?
You'll have to wait until next episode.
Hey, that's what we call a tease in the industry. Speaking of teases, Haas had a really good weekend, you guys. They had an initial 7th and 10th that got bumped up to 5th, and I want to say, I don't know what my math is. Actually, I think Ollie stayed in his position because it was only the aforementioned Ferrari brothers that got disqualified from the top 10. But commit, pit, or quit as Haas being the best of the rest, being the upper middle class representative, being the champion of Formula 1.5 in terms of 5th place.
Ooh. Fifth place and 8th. Ollie finished. So I think I got a lot to say here, Todd, if you want to go first.
No, please go.
Okay.
I'm all ears.
Ollie Behrman is by far the most impressive rookie in the first 2 races. Like, Kimi Antonelli. Kimi, yes, exactly. Kimi Antonelli is obviously up there too. Like, both of these guys are going to be like a part of Formula One for a long time, if they can get out. Like, if they can get out from under the hierarchy, let's say. I don't think that Haas is. I think Haas is like, failing upwards more than anything.
Peter
like
principle.
Yeah, they are not like. I don't think they have it all together. I think that if Ollie Behrman is in a, let's say a Racing Bulls, a V-carb, like he's probably giving Yuki fits. Like, he's probably beating Yuki in that car right now, the way he's drove the first couple of races. So I don't really have any faith in Haas as a team, but I do think that, Ocon has always had like a chip on his shoulder too, right? Like, I feel like he's he's always just waiting to.
Dare I say he's Dylan Brooks' level of irritant or Pat?
Yes. Like exactly. That's a great example, right?
That's what I do every now and then.
Like I don't want to root for him, but I love his just like tenacity. His like, I don't even want to call it arrogance because it's more just like it's more of a frustration that comes from him, but it's like I'm so mad and so frustrated with all of my career in Formula One that I'm going to force myself to be a part of this conversation, whether you like it or not.
So here is part of the origin story of why Esteban Ocon is probably tied for my favorite driver on the grid. It's because exactly that. Anytime I play a sport, I have no athletic skill, as my co-host can attribute, but I have a certain psychological advantage that for whatever reason causes people to underestimate me whenever I set foot on your favorite court or your pitch or your whatever the hell the pickleball equivalent is. And out of sheer annoyance and pestering, I can get the occasional result that I should not be able to get given my bio data, as Indian dating sites like to refer to it. And there is a psychological advantage that is infuriating as much as it is exhilarating for me. And I guess that's why I like Esteban Ocon. Because to your point, he should not have made it as far as he has in the Formula One sport. I mean, outside of Lewis Hamilton, he's probably the only driver that has not had upper class sociological implications in terms of how that shaped his career trajectory. But go ahead, Todd. I know he's another favorite of yours.
Yes, I do love me some Esty Bestie. I'm going to pump the brakes on all this and say I'm going to quit on Haas big time because the V-Carb, the Racing Bulls, the Visa Cash Wrap, Cactus Jack, whatever.
Dude loves mankind.
There you go. Oh, that just sent me down a tangent about WrestleMania when Mick Foley, Dude Love, and Mankind all appeared in the same WrestleMania.
Oh, you mean also in the Royal Rumble? But
sorry, Royal Rumble. That's what I was thinking.
How dare
Royal
you?
Rumble. Yes. Sorry. But they're definitely the best of the rest right now. And I know that seems silly, having them not scored the same amount of points yet. But the one critical error they did in China today was they went for the two-stop when everybody else was like, oh, no, we're not going to waste it. And my guy, Isaac, almost got back into the points after that. Yeah. Granted, he was like, what was he, like 2 or 3 seconds off of 10th place after a 3-stop, which is pretty amazing. And I think the changeable conditions, we saw Isaac crash, but Yuki and Isaac have both been performing. That car has some serious pace. I would be willing to do the usual juice box bet that RB beats Haas, no questions asked, this season. They've got a better car. They've got better performing drivers. Este's gonna get testy and probably crash into Behrman at some point when they're fighting over the same 10th or 11th place. It's gonna happen.
Nick, go ahead first, and then I've got my arguments.
So I agree. I think yeah. I don't really have anything else to say. I just agree.
And here's the thing. Esteban Ocon tends to do that. He tends to halt conversations because you just want to talk about a more exhilarating, more charismatic, more technically proficient driver. But listeners, Exhibit A, did we see the overtake of the day when he got on Kimi Antonelli's blindside and gave him one of those welcome to the league rook moments? Because that was nice.
That was good.
Todd, to your point, you're right. Yuki, hopefully this is his breakout year. But guess what? I have a feeling he's going to be Red Bull's second driver. And so who is going to take that second seat at Cactus Jack, Chainsaw Charlie, your favorite 80s obscure wrestler, Formula One team? Because that's the other issue why I don't think it's going to be V-Carb. Sauber, despite picking up Hülkenberg, who we all thought was going to give them a boost of credibility, continues to be the most anonymous team in the world. It doesn't matter who's in that team. They just continue to be scenery. I'm going to say this. It's not a hot take, but Are we ready to see a world where Lance Stroll consistently beats Fernando Alonso in 2-for-2 races? It's not going to be that, because there's no way in hell the prophecy is going to come correct that a Lance Stroll-led team will be in the upper half of a Formula One grid. And then who's left? Alpine? I think that might be the closest competitors to Haas's thing. But then I'm a big fan of the all-French civil war that is Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly going at it one last time. So I think it's there for the taking. Actually, I'll take that back. There's one team that is going to be probably 5th place, and that's going to be Williams. But they still have to get it together.
I don't know. I don't know if the pace is there for the Williams. I agree. They're probably the best driver pairing of the best of the rest. But is the car going to get there? And I'm not convinced so far. Also, China had a lot of high-speed stuff, and Williams is fast in a straight line, or they have been historically. Their car seems better this year, or a little bit more edging towards well-rounded versus just a bullet. But I think as the season plays out, just how the car seems, the double stamp from Max showing that the RB, the V-carb, whatever, is a high-performing car, even compared to the Red Bull. I think it's there.
You think it's there?
Yeah.
Nick, give me your pick then.
Okay. Well, first, Todd, you're just going to casually stroll past the fact that Lance
is making him dance?
Yeah.
Lance will make you dance. Oh, the amount of money he's probably dropped at a strip club before. Jesus.
You think he's let into a strip club? That dude's got a weird baby-faced middle school lacrosse player look about him.
Well, one, he's Canadian, and two, another great Canadian that owns several strip clubs is one Wayne Gretzky. So I'm almost willing to guarantee that Mr. Lance Stroll and maybe Lawrence Stroll has taken a peruse or two in Wayne Gretzky's strip clubs. But let's give credit where it's due. Lance had a great race. Their strategy was also awesome, and if Alonso's brakes didn't explode, they probably would have had a good result for both drivers today. They went long. I think actually they started on the hards, right, and then went super long and then changed to the mediums, I want to say. But yes, Stroll had a great race, and what did he finish?
I don't know where he finished, but he is 1 point ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the driver's standings, which we might not have ever been able to say in the history.
Stop the count. There it is. Stop the count. He finished in 9th today. So, I mean, it's not a bad result considering, by all accounts in preseason, that car was yet again a dog. So maybe they're getting it together.
However, if this is my quit. This is literally like not even just quit. This is literally rip it out of Formula One's hands, drop kick it into another atmosphere. If Lewis got a point for his fastest lap in China, he would actually be tied with Lance. But what the hell is this? No points for fastest laps. This is the lamest rule change in forever.
Did they really stop the extra point?
Yep.
If you're not, I thought if you're not in the top 10, right? Or what's the?
Oh no, that was the old rule, but
that's the old rule. They're not doing it at all anymore. No points for fastest lap this year.
Oh, that's really funny. How did I miss that?
Yeah,
I mean, it was kind of a farce anyway. They would have. I mean, there were several ways that it could have been potentially unfair, right? You have, say, like, I think they tried it in one of the final races of last season where they pitted Daniel Ricciardo to go try to steal the fastest lap, so somebody in McLaren wouldn't get it. I think,
but I think that's part of racing, right? Like that's kind of cool that like Lance Stroll could throw on some softs at the end of a race and take a point from somebody else.
But not everybody has a junior team like Red Bull does, right? So it doesn't necessarily like. It has to be the perfect situation, but if you have a second team that are expendable, for lack of a better term, you could send them out more often than not, right? To go try to steal a fastest lap.
I can understand that point of view, but I still think it's like the worst decision.
I do think it sucks. Yeah,
you guys are inspiring hot takes in my mind that I hadn't even thought of. So thank you for this.
Hot takes of cool dudes coming soon.
All right, I think one last topic I had was the aforementioned Carlos Sainz, who was a member of Ferrari. And commit, pit, and quit, gentlemen. What do we make of the fact that, much like Lance Stroll has taken old Fernando out to pasture these first 2 races, Alex Albon's doing something similar to Carlos Sainz? Are we thinking this is a sign of things to come? Is this just an aberration as Carlos Sainz gets familiar with the car that he hasn't driven before, or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, for me, that's a pit. I think you kind of mentioned it before, but a journeyman driver is definitely one Carlos Sainz. He's had, I don't know how many teams.
Red Bull or V-Carb, whatever their iteration was way back when. Toro Rosso, Renault, McLaren,
yep,
Ferrari, Williams.
Yep. So
and possibly a 6 if this Audi news that we all think that he's going to be the first one to go to Audi when they come onto the grid. So that's 6 right there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, I just think that he's proven to be one of the most adaptable drivers. I'm not saying like ultimate pace wise, but he's found a way to get on with every single car. He was quick in the McLaren. He got up to speed in the Renault when they had a little bit more speed than they have shown in the past couple of years. So I think he still needs a bit more time, and I don't think he's that far off, honestly. Of Albon. He granted qualifying's been a little bit rough. Albon's definitely been taking him to the woodshed on that, but he's not super. It's not like we're looking at like a Lawson versus Max situation. He's a couple of tenths off, maybe half a second at best. It's not that he's, Max is P2 and Lawson's P20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Carlos. So it is going to be interesting. Like once the 26th season kicks in, the rule changes, all of that stuff is going to throw everything kind of to the wind a little bit. But I do think the Audi conversation, like that's one of those moments where that might be signs kind of stepping into like his potential, because
a sign into his potential.
Yes, but Williams looks really good, right? Like just as a whole, they seem to be like have gotten their shit together a little bit more this year already. And I think with Alex Albon, like we all know he has a ton of potential. I struggle to even see where they're not. I don't want to say like.
Are they the best of the rest, Nick?
Yeah, maybe. Like they're 5, right?
Yep.
It's McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Williams. Like, is that? Because like just points right now don't really show what anything at all in terms of the best of the rest conversation. Alpine will eventually score some points, but I do think they're kind of just going to shit the bed this year. The rest of the season, I don't expect anything from them necessarily. Not that they might not have some glimpses of greatness and score some points, but I also don't think Haas will be as high up as they are right now. I think they end up falling down towards the bottom. Obviously, Sauber is going to be near the bottom because they're kind of just waiting for the next. Haas is probably like a 6 or a 7, right? 8.
Probably. If
I like how we all have very strong opinions on who the best of the rest is. Bro picked Haas. You've picked Williams, and I've picked V-Carb.
I mean, I think that V-Carb is up there as well, but I just think that like the tumultuous relationship with second drivers and the seat at Red Bull means that V-Carb won't have.
That's my thought as well. Because if Yuki's moving up, who's going to get that second seat? Are they going to do his direct along? That's really inspiring.
But what if Lawson goes, like, the craziest thought to me is that they swap those drivers. Sure, like, whatever happens with Yuki as an aside. What if Lawson goes to RB and basically picks up where Yuki left off and is fighting for points, 8, 9, 10?
And then in 2 races, they're going to swap again.
No, like, then that just proves how fucked the Red Bull is, and anybody not named Max can't drive that car.
That's fair, but to me, I think the best of the rest, and you guys let me know if I'm being obtuse in this, is it almost always seems to be a consistency play more than anything with the best of the rest, because they'll be fortunate to win a podium, let alone third place. There's just the team that, in my mind, would appear to be in that, let's say, 5 to 8 range most consistently. And I think if given that, it should be Williams. But now I've kind of established and hitched my wagon to Esty Bestie, so my hands are tied. But a logical thinking man would say it is Williams because of the other thing that Nick and both you, Todd, have mentioned, which is they have probably the most complete driver pairing in the grid. I'm not even going to use that best of the rest thing because they're both closer to their primes or exiting their primes in a shorter distance than we would see with the likes of, let's say, Ferrari, who have another very balanced lineup, but there's still a confusion there. And for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what you tell Carlos Sainz. He always drives like a 1.5, meaning he knows when to be the number 1 driver on the team and he knows when to be a number 2 driver on the team. And so he is adaptable. He is the Bruce Lee quote of be water, my friend, because whatever you pour him into, he takes the shape of that.
Yeah, I can see it. And I really believe in James Vowles and what he's doing with that team. I just don't think it's there. He hasn't had his hand on the reins long enough yet. I'm really excited for them going into 26. It's like all coming up Millhouse for Williams. Sorry to shoehorn a Simpsons quote in there, but it really is like really promising by all accounts, and the changes that he's doing back at the factory, how they work on cars, how they strategize for races. I really like where it's going, and I'm ready to jump on the Williams hype train, like for 26 onward. I just think it's not there yet, and I think as it stands right now, the car itself, I believe in the V-carb more.
Can I borrow a feeling and just say, I'm sorry. Did he? Nick, save us.
I think I agree. I think I also wonder like where Williams goes next season, right? Like, is Carlos going to be there? Is he going to go to Audi? Like, what's the driver situation for Williams? Like, because part of Todd made an interesting point about Red Bull and building a car for Max. Like, the car is only drivable by Max. Now, is that just there's 2 ways like I can interpret that. Red Bull just doesn't know how to build a championship car, and Max is just literally God in driving shoes. Or they've gone so far down the path of building specifically for Max's driving type that nobody else is going to be able to get into a Red Bull car and support Max, even because it's just not set up to drive. It's set up to drive in a very specific way. I don't really think either of those things is true, but also like it's hard to deny that like Liam Lawson has more skills than what he's displaying right now. Yeah. So I'm kind of in this, I don't know like what that means for Red Bull, but thinking about how that mentality, if that works, if that's the same for other teams, is that why maybe, like, is the Ferrari built more for Leclerc's driving style? And then is there a learning curve for Lewis? You know what I mean? Like, it just makes me think about all the, like, the nuances of all this stuff where, like, Carlos is the guy you want if you want someone that's going to be like water. The rest of the drivers, I don't necessarily have that same level of faith of put him in any car and he'll be probably in the top 10, top 7 on a regular basis.
This is the other thing, though, Nick, that you brought up that I really agree with. If you had to say who is the most Carlos Sainz-like driver not named Carlos Sainz, who would your answer be? Because I think my answer would be Alex Albon. Because he's had to be in that similar thought process of being a number 2 when he was in Red Bull. And then he was kind of also a number 2 when George Russell was there for his stint at Williams. But we always kind of wax poetic about the fact that wasn't Alex Albon the one who famously didn't come in for a pit stop until the very last lap of a race, and he still maintained a 10th place position, which was saying something because at that point, that Williams car was the epitome of dog shit.
Yeah, that was Australia last year, I think, right?
Yeah.
When he did like 49 laps or something on.
It's one of my favorite broken record talking points that I have, but I think that has to say something. And that's where I hope selfishly that Sainz and Albon stay together, because I do think they complement each other really well. They are the best version of who's the number one driver here, because you could tell either one of them, hey, you're the number one driver or you're the number two driver. And I could think both of them would drive and just get along with it, even though we all know Formula One drivers have egos the size of Helmut Marko's racism. But those two seem to hide it most.
I would pump the brakes a little bit on that. I still think the best driver pairing on the grid is Lando and Oscar right now. I think they're still...
That's fair. And they're both in their... not even close to their primes, it would seem.
Yeah, I still think they're on the upside. But I would say, as far as driver pairings, I would still say they're number two easy. Like, as a team, right? Like, just to your point, Ro, like, they kind of get on with... no fuss, and if they have to be put in the back seat, they're not, like, for a race or a situation, they're like, okay, head down, I'm just going to do what I do, right? And that is a really strong attribute for them, for Williams. And I do think that there's a good chance, given the trajectory of Williams, that we see them continue long term. I'm starting to put less stock in the whole Carlos Sainz Sr. connection to Audi and them going there. They've already got their German driver in Hülkenberg, and I think Bortoleto is actually proving to be quite a talent. So give Sauber or Audi a better car, and I think that's a decent pairing. It might even lead to Hulk finally getting a podium.
Commit, pit, or quit. That's what I was going to ask you. Commit, pit, or quit. Do we get the Hülkenberg podium we've all been promised?
Oh man, that's tough, but it just depends on where Audi starts next year. You know, the new reg set, it's all bets are off, right?
Reg set, by the way, the name of my all reggae diplomats dipset cover band.
There's a niche. I have one final thing. I'm going to give you guys a pecking order as I see it now, and you guys give me the commit, pit, or quit on it. All right, we have McLaren out front. We have Mercedes at number 2, even with Kimi's not really up to speed there yet. We've got Red Bull at number 3 because of Max, because just Max is an unstoppable force. And we've got Ferrari at number 4 because Ferrari's going to Ferrari, and they're going to get DQ'd or DNF or bad pit strategy or whatever it is. They still can't get out of their own way. That's my top 4. I would like a final commit, pit, or quit.
I would just say this. Can we call Ferrari Team Dairy Queen, because they DQ something different every time?
I think Ferrari is going to be number 2. I think Red Bull is going to be number 3. I think Mercedes is going to be number 4. I say that because I think that it's exactly it's what we saw in the response from Charles, the kind of attitude that you were talking about, Todd. I think that Lewis will be the counterbalance to that in like changing the dynamics of the way the communication happens between the team and the drivers. And I think that's always been kind of what an underlying piece of in the pits for Ferrari has been Rowett's like questioning of who's number 1. You know, like, yes, Charles is number 1 on paper, but like it didn't always feel like that, right? So like I think there's a lot of things that are up in the air in the pits, but I think that, you know, like you already hear the difference in the way that they talk to each other, the way that they're trying. You know, Lewis is I'm obviously a big Lewis fan, but like the way that he's talking to the team, trying to get them to communicate more, trying to learn and trying to be more communicative.
No, it is that.
Like that's why he's the greatest driver of all time. You know, like
he's trying to establish a culture, because I think Lewis Hamilton knows that if I can't win an 8th title with Ferrari, the second best thing I can do is establish a winning culture that will propel them towards that next title.
Yeah.
It may be with me, it may not. But to your point, it's like playing pickup basketball and you have the old guy in your team who's just constantly chattering like, hey, screen right, screen left, pick left. And you're like, geez, shut the hell up. And then you realize after the fact, like, no, that's how you want a teammate to communicate. And then lo and behold, you're the one that's bellowing out orders and telling people where the coverages are coming from. And like, that's what you want from him. for me, I guess it's a quasi hot take. I think it's going to be predicated on who takes that second seat at Red Bull, but I could see them going to first just because of the fact that there's a historic precedence there where Checo's had less than stellar seasons and Red Bull still figured it out because Max is that good. But I hate being stock, but I do think it's McLaren's title to lose on both fronts this year. I'm not convinced yet around Mercedes because I just need to see it a little bit more, not only from Kimi, but also George Russell. So I'm going to go McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, because I'm not convinced about this Ferrari pairing. And granted, it's only 2 races. I will eat my hat if things go better in the best way imaginable, but it's just something about it does not seem to me to be the long-term sustainable thought that all of those parties had when they decided to join forces.
Speaking of George Russell, did you guys happen to catch the most George Russell thing I've ever seen in the history of George Russell?
We say this every week, but what was it, Nick?
He's walking along doing an interview, and someone yelled, "Hey, it's Handsome George," and he heard it, and literally went and had the fans say it into the microphone during the interview. It was great. It was great. No, I couldn't help but think Todd would just be hating on this man right now.
Oh my God! Actually, Max pulled a George Russell 3 turns into the race. He's like, Leclerc has a broken wing, just like a total hall monitor moment.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But I mean, I think you guys are discounting what George is doing right now because he's
fast.
He might be the person we've been promised, the prince.
He could be. He could be. Toto maybe had it right. I don't know. They're in second right now, and that's basically because of George. I think he's going to score a boatload of points. To quote Iron Trev in the Discord, shout out, plug Discord. I still think Kimmy's kind of all over the place, but I think George is going to be there fighting for podiums every weekend, and because of that, we see Mercedes in second there.
I mean, Todd, you do realize that Kimi has 22 points in 2 races. That's pretty good.
Well, no.
George has 35.
Yeah, but is that because of the sprint? Didn't he have a good result in the sprint, or am I?
I don't remember. I don't remember where he was.
Let's take the sprint out of it.
I just you're 100% right though. George is flying. He's driving better than he's ever driven before. I think that it's the same thing that happens anytime someone gets out of the way. When you feel like you're the second man and you're given the keys to be the front man, you got to be the front man. And he's doing it. But yes, Kimi is all over the place, but he's fucking fast, man. That kid is going to be, we're going to be talking about him at the end of the year, and we're going to be like, wait, how many points does he have?
Nick, let me ask you this. You've already spoken for, I think, do we have 24 races this year or 23?
24. I think there's 24 on the calendar.
Nick has given, by my count, let's say, I'll bump it up to 15 wins to McLaren. Of the remaining 11, do you see Kimi getting 1? Juice box bet, anyone?
I don't see it. I don't see him getting a win this year.
I see it. I see it quite clearly.
I think Kimi. If Kimi gets a win, it's going to be stealing one of Albon's bad weather, everyone else died.
He takes Hulkenberg's win away from him in the last lap.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Kimi's got big Professor Chaos energy to me. Something about him just seems like he's the type of dude that is just kneel before me, minions. I'm Professor Chaos.
Well, and we talked about this on a previous episode, right?
Yeah.
He is either going to be Crash Bandicoot, or he is going to be the prince that was promised before the Prince George gets his crown or whatever.
God, George, it would be the most George Russell thing in the world that just when he thinks he's got his time to shine, the baby brother comes in and trumps him with his adorable, cute nature and gets a win before him and becomes charismatic. And if there's nothing else, listeners, this is for all the listeners over 60. George Russell has big Jan Brady energy. I'll say it right now.
Sure, Jan. Sure,
And
Jan.
Lewis is Marsha, and Kimmy is going to be Cindy.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I still think there's really no counting out Max in all of this equation. I think he's not fighting anybody, and it's very much becoming with these teams that may have it together with their 1 and 2 drivers or 1A 1B. They're going to be taking points off of each other, so I just really wouldn't count out Max at this point. So.
Max is Thanos.
Yeah.
There's an inevitability to what he does. And much like Thanos, he's a one-man army. He doesn't need anything else. He can figure it out on his own. And that's the scariest thing about him.
What we need to figure out is what it would take, the bare minimum number of wins it would take for Max to win a title if Lando and Oscar steal wins from each other the rest of the races.
I think he would have to get at least the 11 wins, because then, to your point, Nick, if we're giving 15 to McLaren, we're giving Max 11. That means he beat Lando by 1 race, and that's assuming nobody else gets a race win.
I think if Max doesn't have a win in like the first 5 or 6 races, then we can start having a different conversation where it's like, okay, the Red Bull car is not coming along as it should. Maybe the Newey effect is gone. It's just like you just said, he's Thanos, and it's just a snap of the fingers, and then half the field's gone.
Speaking of conversations being had and outlandish predictions, I think now is as time as any to sign off, because I think it's coming in 10 days, because listeners, I'll be in Hawaii next week. So I don't know if we're going to be able to do the normal Sunday recording time, but when we are back, just get ready for Hot Takes Cool Dudes 3, The Reckoning. All up in that ass with the resurrection of Hot Takes. But before we break for the day, Nick, where can they find you?
At Nick Engvall everywhere. I'm not really on social much as of late, but Exhaust Notes FM everywhere. If you haven't left us a review, we would definitely appreciate that. And find us in the Discord to have all the in-between conversations about all of this chaos that is the Formula One season. Todd, how about you?
Likewise, dadshoe.jpg or dadshoe_JPEG on all the platforms. But most importantly, come join the Discord. Scream into the void. We have a merry band of pirates in there that like to talk about F1. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
And listeners, you can find me on OnlyFans at Fallujah flexi-wing, and on all social media networks at RoadM13. Hey, that one felt like mid-season form for me. So we're back with the OnlyFans. So whoever's doing that supercut of all my OnlyFans, you got a new one to the reel.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening. Leave us a review, and we will talk to you the next time. Peace.
Peace.